Hey there, folks. It's 7:46 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's August the 25th, 2022. I'm making this today in lieu of trying to put all of these parts together that I was looking at for what was going to be a post at my Facebook Obery Project Panoply group. If you're not in that, the link's in the description. Join it for all the people out there that can't stand Facebook because, it's the man and it's so strangulating and stifling to your free speech. Yeah, I get it, because it is. Yeah, I don't know. I'll tell you. It's either that or it's like the difference between YouTube and BitChute. You can either bite your lip a little bit, put up with it, or go into like BitChute rampant Hitler worship land. And here's the thing. The narrative is just as controlled in those other platforms in a just completely different way. When I started going on Gab's narrative is controlled in just a different way. They're both controlled. Neither one of them is your friend. So what can I tell you? But anyways, so there's there's about 332 members in that group. A solid 3 or 4 actually post. Another maybe 9 or 10 comment. Yikes. And I gotta think that it's that way on this channel too. That video that I asked everybody to comment on, just viewed, I counted them all up, and I think it was somewhere around 1/6 of my total average viewers. We're not talking about my subscribers. That would be way lower. So anyways, what I've been doing is I've gone on 4 trips in the last year and a half in Michigan, because I live like close to the middle area, so it's not that hard to travel around Michigan, and it's not that expensive. So I've taken 4, and most of them were real short, like a 3-day thing or something. And more than that, I have what I believe to be some remarkably old and beautiful downtown areas, infrastructure and industry right near me, which I'm going to be traveling to more and more as the days go on. So this has to do with some of the videos and posts that I've made concerning dams. I had never really paid a lot of attention to hydros. For one thing, where I grew up in Indiana, they don't really have so much for hydros. You'd have to get towards some of the bigger Indiana rivers. The Indiana River I grew up near, for anybody who's watched The Garden of Indiana, it was the Kankakee. There's nothing significant on the Kankakee. That's more of a canal system type of river. So I've had these questions because I've seen some weird things at these hydro locations, things that don't seem to add up very well. Like a number of them I have seen, taken pictures of or recorded, low-head dams immediately in front of at least the powerhouse, and in some cases it would be full river. So most of the dam's designs are as, well, let's see. I don't know if I have any on this page. No, this page is relatively important. Not on that page. Well, we'll try, let's open up one other page here real quick, and that'll give us a good idea. So I wasn't on the website I thought I was on. So I'm just opening up one of the pictures I took from Alpena. Alpena, Michigan is on the east side of the Lower Peninsula towards the north, near a little inlet called Thunder Bay. It's north of the Sometimes they refer to the Lower Peninsula as a mitt because it looks sort of like a mitten of a hand. So figure up from the crotch of the thumb, you have this Thunder Bay. So that's where Alpena is. So you see this. This is a very common looking design in these hydro facilities. You'll have this building here, powerhouse, could be on either side. I've seen some interesting variations, but it's usually off to one side. And then sometimes you might have various types of spillways that they may actually use for diverting debris into or whatnot, or they could just use them as a partition to set up essentially these gates. So the gates are going to be used to control the level of the reservoir behind, because they have to keep a certain level, and sometimes they have to adjust it for different times of the year. So that's what the gates be used for. If you see more gates, it's usually pretty safe to figure that they may have to just discharge a great deal of water at once, either now or in the past. And then you're always going to have at least one spillway on site. So over here they have quite a small spillway, and maybe that's because they have so many gates. Now, gates can also be set, and often they are designed to also act as a type of spillway if they're set at the same level as the existing spillways. And then typically behind that, you're going to have an earthen dam, and that's where a lot of the real time and real work goes, because that is oftentimes where you're going to get failures. You got to build those earthen dams correctly. Got to build them very well. And then what they'll typically do is, when they're designing out a site, somewhere in the reservoir lake that's behind the dam, they're going to have a site where they're going to have to plan out an emergency spillway. The emergency spillway is going to sit at a certain level. Most of the time they're built from concrete, but I'm pretty sure I've seen some that are actually just built as an earthen dam, and only at a certain height in a certain place, so that, you know, they can give, if need be. And those emergency spillways are usually meant to be the last straw, but you have to design that into them. So now that I've given you this this rundown, this is basic, and yes, they do vary. Now I'm going to open up something else. So recently I went to the western part of the Upper Peninsula. So around Escanaba, Gladstone, we took a trip up to Marquette. We took a trip over to Iron Mountain, but all in that area. Now, one thing is, I've gotten into the habit, if I'm going to stay somewhere, I'm going to check out major rivers as much as I can. The problem is I didn't pre-plan this. And when you get up to the Upper Peninsula, a lot of spots in the Upper Peninsula, you don't have internet, you don't even have phone hardly. Maybe just enough to send some texts if you're lucky. So I didn't have Google Earth that I could look on for these, you know. We were trying to site, there's supposed to be 4 sites on the Escanaba River. So the Escanaba River here, I'm going to pull back a little bit and give you a sense of how and where it sits and all. I'm going to pull way back here. It's a good sized river. So here we go. Here's Lake Michigan, Superior, Huron, Lower Peninsula. Alpena's right up here. Alpena and Presqu'île. There's so many Presqu'îles, don't try to keep track of them. Presqu'île is not necessarily a proper name. Presqu'île is just the designation. Presque in French means almost, and île is isle. I-S-L-E, they just pronounce it île, Presqu'île. Almost an island, which is why all of them are peninsulas. Presqu'île. Makes sense, right? So you zoom in here on, you've got Green Bay here. This is the long bay off Lake Michigan to the west. Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. You have 2 bays. You've got Big Bay Dinock and you've got Little Bay, Dinook. I stayed outside of Gladstone. Gladstone's kind of a small town, 4,000 residents in the 2010 census. Go to Escanaba. Escanaba's a pretty big place. Plenty of industry in and outside of Escanaba. There's still one operating iron mine, and there used to be very large, very impressive ore docks that were all torn out. You can see their remnants here. And it's pretty amazing, actually. You can see there's a lot of industry over here. And in fact, Canadian Railroad owns all of this land, and you can't just go on it and check things out. Go figure. So here's the Escanaba River. The mouth of the Escanaba is actually between Escanaba and Gladstone, Western UP. And what I was trying to do was figure out from the mouth of Lake Michigan up to, it gets pretty close to Marquette County, because Escanaba River, I don't know if you can even still see, I'm kind of tracking it, with my crosshairs there, goes up into Marquette County. Pretty far up there, almost around on Gwinn, and then you have these other iron mines way up here, right? Okay, so there's 4 sites, and they're all supposed to be tied together with this paper mill. There's this huge paper mill that you can actually see. I want you to, if you can, look at the screen, and you'll see Escanaba here, all that downtown and industry and other things right here in Escanaba, okay? And then you see this area right here. This area right here is probably about 1/6, maybe less, 1/7 the size of what we see here in Escanaba. If you zoom in on it, this is all the area of this paper mill. It's this gigantic paper mill. I don't remember the name of the paper mill, and I don't think I have their page up anymore. Verso. So Verso. And Verso claims to produce 750,000 tons of paper, craft paper, a year. Annually, I believe. So what happens is, I believe the old, not necessarily Verso, but an older company, I went and there's a historical society in Escanaba right next to the lighthouse. I went there, took a lot of pictures of the old pictures hanging on the wall, and I found a really interesting picture. Now, I didn't have the time to scroll through all of these. And it's really, I'll tell you something, it is not the easiest thing when you're trying to just use like basic internet Google to find dam sites. And they're not friendly and inviting. And basically, if you go to a hydro site and you're taking a lot of pictures and you're trying to like go around the fences, you're staying out of where you're not supposed to go, even though they're sitting, their asses are planted on our rivers. They're not sharing the profits. In fact, their system is it's very negative concerning how it profits us, because it is power on demand, which keeps us ever dependent on them. But anyways, so because of all of this 9/11 bullshittery, they even like have these signs up around all these places, not just dams. There was signs like this up around the ore docks. I got stopped at the ore docks for taking an excessive amount of picture of the ore docks and the bridge on public property. That's the kind of shit we're looking at. So anyways, it's difficult, and you want to get near these places so you can take good pictures, check out the terrain, and so on and so forth. We spent, I want to say we spent a couple hours one day, and it was very frustrating. And then another couple hours another day, trying to find some way to get to this dam site 2. There's 4 dam sites listed on the Escanaba River associated with this power industry. And as you look into the, not power industry, another different, I don't know if it's this paper mill specifically, or if it was different kind of industry then. And the stories get more and more convoluted as you kind of read into why they needed this then and this then and this then, okay? We're looking everywhere for dam site 2. There's 4. We found 1, no problem. 3, not much of a problem, except you had to drive right by a shooting range, which was not, I mean, right by it. And the way they had this designed is literally the built-up earth wall, you know, for the background of where at least some of this was being aimed at, was towards this little side road you had to go in. I mean, talk about making an entry unattractive. We found that. Got some good pictures of that. We found Site 4. None of these were an issue. Site 2. So finally, I got another map. I blew it up and I found out, okay, on the one side, it's all owned by this now paper company. The other side was right off a county road, sort of. Yeah, county road. And as we were driving northbound on this county road, I spotted the dam from the road. The river is off the road quite a little bit. But if you're looking at the river between the houses, because there's houses kind of along the bank, the high bank, because the river banks down a lot. That's typical of Michigan rivers, and that's good terrain if you want to put in a hydro on the river. Because it makes it to where the earthen dams you have to construct are less, and you're going to contain all of that water over a shorter distance. You can't really do it if the land is too even for too long, then it's just a mess. So there's good terrain for that. Finally, we ended up stopping on the side of the road. I walked across the road, knocked on a guy's house, told him who I was, told him that I was on vacation and I like spotting dams and taking pictures of them. And I said, I cannot get any vantage point to see or take pictures of this dam. Could I possibly go into your backyard and do it? And he was very nice. He was helpful. When I stood in his backyard, and just below my feet, and I'm zooming in, by the way, I'm full zoom on this picture. Full zoom. There was a drop off, so this goes down quite a long ways. And I probably should have snapped one just to give you an idea of how far up his yard was. But anyways, I tried to just get pictures of the one bank and whatever these structures are here. We've got plenty of concrete, something going on over here. I mean, this almost looks like the frame of a gate or something. And then it looks like we have some sort of chute here, right? Looks like we might have a bridge over this way. Not sure what's going on over here. From this picture. This picture just giving you the scale, and this is probably why I should have pulled back and took one without any zoom. By the way, there's a railroad tracks running right along here too. Another close-up to the right. This is a little zoom back because I tried to give you the full, okay, based on the width of this river. And now I'm gonna zoom into the site, actually. So what I was is I stopped. I want to get the right guy in the right house because it's important. Had to be this guy. And you're not going to be able to tell probably. Let me see, because there was a Ford tractor for sale over here. There was 2 houses that were right next to each other. Yep, this is the house. You go in the backyard, there's only this little part of the backyard, and he had a fence up right here, a vinyl fence right here. And then you have to drop down 6 feet or so to this lower landing of the yard here. And then past that, it is super drop off. Super drop off all the way to here. It's big. I mean, it probably dropped off, my goodness, 60, 80 feet. I mean, till the time you got to the bottom or so. So this is the dam I'm taking pictures of. Now, it's interesting. You get into areas like this on Google Earth, and the 3D function, of course, ceases to operate. And actually, you know, some places where they are kind of more important, and you would think they would operate, they don't so much operate. All right, so that's telling me that from wall to wall, and I just want you to see, that's all engineered earth dam right there. I don't know how much they had to do in here, but I would imagine quite a bit. And perhaps all this down here, we're going to talk about that. 315 feet wide. So if I go back to the picture, 315 feet wide. So that other, the stone or concrete over here is about here. It's about a third. It's about a third. It's about a third. A third would be at least about right here. So that right there would probably be about 50. That would be about 25 right in there. I'm guessing that the drop off on this is probably near 20 feet. 20 feet. 20 feet. Saying that. Why? That's enormous. That's enormous. Now, of course, I can't tell from here, and I can't tell from this image what the shape is. Because the shape would actually give us a pretty good idea of what kind of dam it was. It's interesting in the Google Earth pictures, they don't show you anything like what kind of boil is going on there. It would be, the last thing you would ever want is to get stuck in that boil. Now, I don't know if they don't have any pontoon ropes on this side. They had them on this side. You saw them, right? You saw them, see? And back quite a ways, too, because once you get into that, I don't know how long it would take for you to get pulled right into there. And you notice how the pontoons are going back off over here. Of course, there's a reason for that. But you see, there's these rapids sort of right here, these little falls or rapids. I would imagine that probably keeps most people who would aspire to go up that way in a boat out. Boy, you would think people would have enough good sense to not approach these, but they don't. Jeez Louise, they don't. They don't. There was a video of some guys in a boat, in a motorboat, right in Grand Rapids that went right up to the, it's like 12 foot tall, low head. And that thing just put their boat right under and messed them up real good. So this channel right here, 1,500 feet. So here's what's weird. I'm at the museum in Escanaba. And they have the Mills at Gruss, Michigan. Mills at Gruss, Michigan. That's all it says. And I must apologize. I don't know if this has always been a paper mill. Here's why. Because I don't know what specifically the setup and machining for a paper mill needs to be. Could it always have been a paper mill? Yeah. Could it have been something else and been converted into a paper mill? Absolutely. Sure could. Sure could. And you have some really interesting odd things about this picture. It looks like you have some sort of an impound back here. And if you go, you can kind of see if we can zoom out a little bit here, if this is the same mill. You see they have a large water containment area. It's about what? 2/3 of a mile off the river. They keep all this water contained over here. And yeah, I mean, I figure they're funneling it off the river somehow, because what they'll do is they'll transfer it back to the river. And they're actually getting sued for poisoning the river. This happened recently with what they call, I think they call it black liquor, which is, it is a byproduct of paper pulp manufacture, which they actually say that you can take this byproduct and condense it and use it as a fuel. So let me see. This whole area here perhaps is paper mill, because the guy whose yard I stopped in, he said that the land was owned by the paper mill. Okay, all this area here maybe could be the paper mill. This, however, over here, because this is Verso, so we see that Verso mill, huge rail yards. And this over here, and we see it looks like a lot of lumber over there. Now, when we pulled in on this side road, we looked at the sign, and we've seen this in a couple other places. It's Billerud. Billerud, America's Corporation. I'm sure they're America's Corporation. So I just checked. No, Billerud's actually, I guess they're purchasing Verso. That happens pretty frequently. I don't know if there is something legal that when one of these huge corporations purchases another, it helps to indemnify the new one from what the other one did, because that happened with Monsanto. Bayer purchasing Monsanto when they were right in the middle of looking at all kinds of litigation over their bullshittery. So anyways, yeah, them owning all this land. Now, what's interesting is, as you can see from above, there is the river, and I've been theorizing for a long time about lowhead dams, what their purpose is, how they may have been used historically. Why on earth are they right in front of hydros sometimes? Because it doesn't make any sense, especially when you're looking at hydros where the powerhouse is built right into the concrete walls, that the walls holding back the water. I want to call them partition walls. They're built right into that. So, I mean, all you can do is a drop, not a huge drop of the water, probably more likely into a chamber. You wouldn't even have a penstock in a lot of situations. It would go right into a vertical chamber. And they would use wickets, and it would create a vortex straight out the bottom. So raising the level of your tail race water with a lowhead dam doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So I've got issues with the lowhead dam. And I've always been wondering, well, maybe these areas where they build this large lowhead dam across the river, what you would see is a channel alongside the river, which would probably have to have a lock. And what they could do is they would limit the size of the vessels that could go up it, which the size of the vessel would have to be limited for a million other reasons anyways. What I thought was strange here when you look at the Billerud or Verso, from overhead, you've got the Escanaba coming up, and if it was running its, I guess its normal course up through here, it appears to be a channel here that has since been probably blocked off, and they've got a bridge over that spans to this odd channel, which I don't know what it even is for, just over a half mile, and the whole thing till you get back to the river proper, just under a mile. Does that mean anything? I don't know. But I'll tell you what's really strange. If you're in the museum in Escanaba and you come across this picture, This picture has the mills at Groos, Michigan, so I'm guessing it's always been paper mill. Okay. And here at the bottom is definitely the Escanaba River. And there you have that one channel. And maybe they had a hydro set up there. Maybe that's what it was before. See that old hydro? Maybe that's what it was before. Because I'm looking at it and I'm seeing all of this big piping. And it doesn't look like this is going to be piping out. It's piping in. Could be powerhouses right in here on that bridge, at least right in this area. Just for this complex. But if that's the case, you look back at this. If that were the case, that channel would have had to have run, why so long, from here all the way out to here? Maybe they had a powerhouse right in here, as you can see here. I'm sorry. Here. That big pile of wood or pulp or something. I don't know what that pile is. I'm just guessing. So all really odd, but the oddest thing is this. So I told you, I went by plant number 1. It's right here. It's the closest one to the mouth of the Escanaba River. Looks a lot different. Looks a lot different now than here. I'm going to have to show the comparison sometime. Made it to site number 3, which is here. Looks way different now. They've either done some serious work to it, or they replaced the powerhouse with concrete, which makes sense to me just in the first place. We went to Boney Falls. This looks a lot like it does now, honestly, except I think, again, they did some work to it, which is really strange when they claim to have made these, okay? But here, and I'm going to move my screen. This power plant number 2, this power plant number 2. They're giving you the other power plants, power plant number 2. And I've looked it up as power plant number 2 for Versa. This is it. This thing right here, that channel would go under here, and then it would have this outlet. Now, is that what we're looking at here? Or here? And here's what I don't understand. This outlet. Now, there is some kind of small, these are, I guess, pretty small buildings right here. I guess in relation to the river, not super small, but what are they doing? I'm not going to believe this was ever just a spillway, like that's a spillway, like that's a spillway. And of course, it's definitely set up with these huge baffles like a Lowhead Dam is. Now, this stuff, was this added on later? Don't know. How much of this might have been retrofit and used for other purposes? More recent? Don't know. Don't know. But I am showing you a few more reasons why I have a lot of questions and a lot of suspicions about these dams, these river dams. So that's just an illustration of it. If you're not in the Oberuit Project Panoply, get in there. Even if that's the only reason you go to Facebook, so what? Because I do post a lot in there, because I don't always have the time to make a video here, because it always takes, even if the video only takes, like today's going to be 35 minutes, I have to do a lot besides that. So I'm wrapping it up now. And this Saturday I might try, because I'm going to start live streaming September 3rd, I might try a practice run just to make sure all systems are firing at the same time as what it would normally be. So look for me to announce that if so. And see you guys next time.